All right.
Welcome, everybody. It's episode 183. Steven's here. I'm here. It's snowing some places, but it's definitely snowing here in chat.
Yeah. It's been raining. It's been raining and thundering, and I'm scared.
Thundering?
Over here. Yeah, it's thunder because it was
Is
like
it thunder snow
here.
or thunder rain?
Just thunder rain. You know, yeah.
I like thunder, though. Makes me feel frisky.
We have had some wild weather that's just kind of like, it was like snowing here 2 weeks ago, and it hadn't snowed here in South Carolina in like the 8 years that I've been down here. Like, this is the first time it was like real snow. And then the next week it was 80 degrees. And then this week it's like 39 and like sleeting. Like,
yeah. You know, I don't know. If the Gulf Stream isn't strong enough, Arctic blasts happen all up your hoo-ha, and you're like, damn it, Arctic blasts. But it's not supposed to do that, but here we are.
I left Illinois for a reason. And
I know. We're going to have to move further south, I think. Sorry.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
We're doing it.
All right, let's do my sponsor shout-outs, please. Thank you. VetDNA.com for all of your testing needs. Use code #ShitHappens for $5 off the crypto panel. You know you need it. I know I need it. We all need it together. Check them out. VetDNA.com. Oh, Shane Kelley, he'll be at SERE this weekend with you too.
Yep.
You guys gonna hug? Are you gonna hug?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes,
and if anybody sees Shane and wants to hug him, tag me on Instagram. I will repost it because I think it's funny. So he's your hug target this weekend.
But only surprise hugs from behind.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess he likes it. I was going to say you need to get consent first, but he likes it, so it's fine. He's asking for it. Thank you, Shane. Spelled Xotics. What's wrong with us? Eileen, Bravo Zulu Ball Pythons, BravoZuluPythons.com. She'll be at the Fort Wayne, Indiana show this weekend on the 15th and 16th, so check her out. Thank you, Eileen, Bravo Zulu Ball Pythons. Stoneage Ball Pythons, I don't know what he's doing because he didn't message me back, but he's a Pacific Northwest ball python breeder focused on clown pied projects. Thank you, Justin. Stoneage Ball Pythons. Andrew also don't know what he's doing, but he's having fun. Pretty sure he hugged Eric last weekend, so that's or 2 weekends ago. So we're into that. We need way more hugs in the world. Thank you, Andrew. He's a ball python, rodent, gopher, cocoa breeder from the Pacific Northwest. Gray family snakes. They will be at SERE, maybe hugging people, but not vending. So check them out. Go by, say hi. And they will be vending the Charlotte and Nashville ARPEs in the spring. So look forward to that. Very fun. Looking forward to that. GrayFamilySnakes.com, their new website. And Chris at BS Reptilia, he will be at the Hamburger Show on February 22nd. All Tarhumaras are sold out. A couple Costa Ricans left, a little bit of bull and pine, and a couple of ball pythons. And he's starting to get ovulations from Longicauda, and maybe Argentine boas and scrub pythons. So they're looking good. And if you want to be a chipper distributor, message him about that or check out cocodude.com. Thank you, Chris. I did it this time. Okay. Yeah. Sometimes I'm like,
you got it.
Oh, thank God. All right, let's check out chat, see how they're doing. Northwest, Jennifer. What's up, everybody? Carissa, Sammy.
It's already popping off.
Oh, thank God. Hopefully we entertain you guys.
Mm-hmm. Also, by the way, I haven't told Jessica about this, but we already have a drinking game, and that is for every word that Jessica uses that I have to Google during this, I have to take a drink, which I don't have a drink ready, and we need $1 super chat. So
okay, cool. The last part sounds good to me. What's up, everybody?
Chris,
319, Aaron, excellent, Lisa. So you said earlier in the green room that you Googled Zeitgeist.
Yes.
You want to tell everybody what it means?
Yeah. So Zeitgeist, according to Google, or at least what I Googled beforehand, is like essentially the vibe, the overall atmosphere surrounding a specific, we're gonna, in this case, ball python hobby. But I didn't know what the word meant, and I felt like it was just slightly inappropriate enough that I needed to make that story as a joke. So we're zeitgeisting all over the ball python hobby tonight, friends.
Yeah, it literally means like spirit of the day. Zeitgeist in German. So
It's a
like,
good one.
and that's like so vague. I was like, fine, that's fine for what we're doing. But I was like, because it's been 5 years since 2020.
Yeah.
You know, so like the spirit is materially different, and I think it's changing. And I'm like, what's happening? And I feel like I see trends, but I wanted to bounce some of them off you, and maybe we could examine the veracity of those trends, and maybe be like, no, not yet, or maybe it's going a different way, and we can talk about it or something.
I'm stoked when I like looked it up and I understood what it meant after that Google search. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a really, really cool and fun live. Like, so, all right, are we jumping right into it?
Yeah.
Or,
and then after that, we can just blab if we want to for more time,
right.
or we can argue. I don't know. It's a free for all.
There we go. It's tonight. It's going down, friends. So, all right, chat. All right, what's our first one?
Let's talk, since the show's coming up, what about the changing landscape of shows? Which ones are maybe important in the past, maybe important in the future? Because there are new shows.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Oh, no. Yeah, you got it. Yeah.
I was just going to say, like, I've materially seen Dallas, the Arlington to Dallas change be huge. Not as like bad or good, just way different. And so people are treating that show differently now than they did when it was Arlington. And I think maybe even more changes could happen as a ripple effect because of new shows. What do you think about that theory?
So I've never been to Dallas or Arlington for a show, but when we first got in, which we like, Courtney's had reptiles for years and years and years, but it was always on the pet keeping side. And we didn't start breeding until 2020. So that was like our first year that we decided we were going to be breeders. So when we started paying attention to the hobby, like the actual industry at that point, the Arlington was like top tier show. It was like Tinley, Daytona, and Arlington. And I feel like, and again, I've never been to it, but the vibe that I always hear about it every single year since like those first 2020, 2021, maybe 2022, is that it's not as good as it used to be. And I think that there's various different reasons for it, but I don't feel like that Arlington/Dallas is the same tier as Tinley anymore.
Well, like, I guess the question is like, what makes something a national level show? Is it the number of attendees? Is it the prestige of the vendors? Or is it the amount of like international and national people who fly in just to socialize?
I think it's a combination of all three. I think that in order to be a national level show, you do have to have people from all over, at least the nation, hopefully outside the country too, but at least the nation coming into that show as an event. But you can have a poor national show where you have people travel in for it, but it just doesn't do super well. There's not that many people, or none of the vendors do super well. And then I also feel like that there's some level of prestige to the vendors. And I think that from a vendor perspective, national level shows, you are able to move like much higher end animals than you can move at local shows. Like at local shows, if you can sell $200, $300, maybe $500 snakes pretty easily, at a national level show, you expect to be able to sell $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, maybe $5,000 snakes because of the people who are traveling into it.
Is there a show? I mean, this is hypothetical here, but there are a lot of shows now where nobody's selling $1,000 snakes, even if they are a national level show. Maybe like some people are there, but like the idea that there's a bunch of qualified buyers there that are like really interested in that category, price point category. And that, but is that, I mean, I haven't been to Tinley, but like, I'm assuming they're there, but are less people flying into Tinley?
So we've gone to quite a few Tinleys since we got in. Like Tinley is one of the shows that we almost always try to go to. And I do feel like that there was this last Tinley, this fall one, felt more like the spring Tinleys of other years. But this fall one was our first time we've ever vended Tinley, and it was our best show that we've ever done, period. So it's like there was less people maybe compared to when we were there as guests beforehand, but even us as new people coming in, it was still good enough to be our best show we've ever had. So
I mean, Tinley's always been weird though, because it can be people's worst show because it's Tinley. You know what I
Because
mean?
it is when you have people like Brock and Justin and Bob and all these people with incredible animals that are competing against you, because that's what's going on. You're competing for sales on it. It's kind of hard to come in as a new person and get people to choose you for your amazing animal versus them and their amazing animal, because everybody brings amazing animals there.
Well, and I know of people who've done like another species, like a new species, and just like bombed, or not a new species, but like just not a ball python, and they just brought a bunch of that, and they just like, whoops. So like, do you think there's a chance that the people that would normally drive to Tinley will begin to forego their Tinley tables?
Yes.
To instead only do maybe SERE and Charlotte ARPE or some combination of those shows, because it's a long drive and it's fine.
Yep. So yes, I 100% think, not like I predict, I think that's already happening. And I think part of that is that Tinley is so hard to get into that I'm going to go off of ball python breeders because that's who we are and that's what we know. You can't get into Tinley of your own power if you're a ball python breeder right now. It's impossible. The only reason why we were able to vend it is we were able to sublease somebody who couldn't make it because of the hurricane in the fall. So I think that there is, with the like advent of All American with SERE, these are amazing shows, and that honestly, the promoters, and I'm not saying Tinley is the best show we've ever had, and obviously it's like the Super Bowl of the reptile world, but the promoters of SERE and All American treat the vendors better than the vendor or the promoters of Tinley, because they don't need to. Like,
yeah, and like in terms of like pure vibes, that means something to me, brother.
Oh yeah,
I could make less and just feel like not meat, and I like that.
Yep.
Not that I ever felt that bad at an RBC, but like, I don't know. It's kind of nice when they walk around and ask you how you did. That's all it takes, really. You know.
So our worst show we've ever done was the NARBC St. Louis. And that was because it was so expensive for us. So it was like, I don't know, $1,500, $2,000 total costs. Like once you factor in hotel and gas and all those different things to like go out and vend it, because it was like 13 hours away from us. And we did some pre-sales that technically made us in the black, but I don't count pre-sales for show revenue because I want to know, what does the show itself bring me? Not like, what did our social media presence bring us? And while we were at the show, I think we only sold 2 animals, made like $400. And it's the only show we've lost money on. Like, so Tinley is amazing. If they were like, hey, do you want a table at Tinley? I'm like, yes, what do you want me to do? Like, I don't care. Come on, give me that table. Like,
will it be amazing though if SERE is amazing? Like, is there a zero-sum game for amazingness? Is that...
I don't know if it's zero sum, but I do think there's like travel fatigue. So we have a relatively small industry that's going to be buying like the high-end animals. And those are the people who are going to be traveling to the shows. And if you have, I'm making up a number because this is probably an exaggeration, but if you have 6 amazing national level shows, like 2 weeks apart, 3 weeks apart, back-to-back weekends, you're not going to be able to go to all of them, even if you want to, because people can't travel that much. And I think that what will end up happening is that people will pick the ones that they either do the best at if they're vendors, or that are the most fun if they are like customers. And then those are going to be the ones that grow. And I think that stuff like SERE and All American are really well positioning themselves, given how fast and how quickly they're growing just coming out of the gate.
Yeah, and I think something I think about a lot is like the city around it, the hotel attached to it, the walkability to whatever. A lot of that means something too. It's not like 100% a predictor, but like how fun it is has a lot to do with like, can you go to a cool dinner? Or not? Which is maybe to Dallas's credit, because it's in the middle of Dallas. Like you could go to all kinds of other things to do if you wanted to. And SERE also, you know,
Mhm.
go to the aquarium or something.
Yep. I love Atlanta. Atlanta is my favorite city that I've been to. It's got my
Does it
favorite bar
smell?
there. Honestly, they do a really good job of keeping it clean, but
Okay.
I will say the homeless population can be very aggressive. And I don't mean like they're gonna fight you, but I mean like they'll walk up to your car while you're parked at a like red light and knock on your window.
That's a lot. I'm a little
Like
scared.
like but
Okay.
I like
Okay.
Atlanta.
But you like it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it just feels like, yeah, no, people can't go to everywhere. If Tinley's really full, people aren't going to wait on the list for 3 years. You know,
Mhm.
they're just going to go somewhere else, and they aren't.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's natural. It's still going to be a good show, I think. But it's
Mhm.
like, I don't want to compete to win Tinley. I have Dallas, so it's fine. You
Mhm.
know.
Yep. Again, we don't have our own table at Tinley, and while I love Bob and I am super stoked for SCRE, and I hope that SCRE gets to the point where it's like Tinley level. I think it's doing really, really well, and I can't wait for the show this weekend. But if they offered me a table for Tinley right now, I'd be like, yes, come on, like I don't even think about it.
All right. Yeah. All right. Well, that's a sort of pro for both. But I feel like people, when I talk to people, I feel like that's on everybody's mind. It's like,
Mhm.
where do I want to lay my hand right now? What chips do I want to stack
Yep.
right now to get ready for whatever future? Maybe if we have another like big boom again or
Mhm.
whatever, because they're just trying to figure it out because things aren't the same as what they were before. And Arlington used to be like pretty bougie, like
Mhm.
mostly ball python breeders, mostly the biggest ones. And it was
Mhm.
very like go have a party there, not necessarily sell a ton of snakes there, but there was a lot of networking. And
Mhm.
very few of those people fly in for Dallas anymore.
Mhm. I see.
Mhm.
Quick question that's going off of what you said, but if it derails or if it's a question you have down already, we can skip it and come back to it. But you had mentioned like if there was another boom, what do you think would be what conditions do you think would need to be met in order for it to be the reptile hobby would be primed to have another boom?
Oh gosh. The hard part is like first, the hobby isn't monolithic. So
Mhm.
a species can boom by itself independent of the larger hobby, although like it can move together.
Yeah.
So it's could be like, and I think you understand what I'm getting at. Like hog nose can still be running hot even while ball pythons feel like they're kind of falling back, but they can
Mhm.
all rise together in a sort of particular economic situation or whatever. Oh gosh. I think for ball python specifically to have a really good run again, they need another multi-million subscriber creator
Mhm.
on YouTube to promote them
Mhm.
actively all the time.
Yep.
And we just frankly need like a really awesome economy, like a good, really good one, not like a kind of okay one,
Mhm.
kind of bad one, maybe good
Y-
in the spring, but because I feel like last spring was like my gross sales were up last year too, but there was a very
mhm.
clear like strong preference for sales in the spring,
Mhm.
sliding down to the fall just because it was tax season, but there was less disposable income, especially in the fourth quarter than I thought there should have been. I was like, what's going on? And there was income, but like people are struggling a little bit. So like
Mhm.
you need to prime both of those. Get people excited, teach them how to enjoy the hobby, teach them that they're cool looking, teach them how to take care of them, and then have them have the spending money to like them. Because a lot of people would like to buy lots of things, but they need to have the
Yeah.
money to do it.
Yeah. I there's a couple questions or Purple Church asked a question, but I'll get if you don't mind, I'll answer it in a second.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that. So we talked about I don't know if it was on once we were on air if it was in the green room, but about how COVID was 5 years away, 5 years ago, 6 years
Isn't
ago.
that crazy? 5 years ago.
Yeah. And so with that, if we think about it in terms of like the hobbies just kind of like steadily growing as it normally grows before COVID,
Mm-hmm.
COVID event happens and it sucks up everybody who potentially could have had interest and were at the age where they had the expendable income to buy ball pythons all at once, and they get into the hobby, and then they're in the hobby, and then we all know how it goes. A large portion of them end up getting out, or maybe they don't get completely out. Maybe they just stop breeding or something like that. And now I think that one of the conditions, not the only condition, but that we have to get to the point where there is essentially a new generation of people who have aged up to the point where they may have been interested in reptiles as kids, like all of us were. And then they are now adults with their first adult jobs. And then something like that you're talking about happens, like a content creator comes out that's viral and catches everybody's interest for the species. And all these people who maybe are watching Snake Discovery right now are like, oh yeah, I loved these things when I was a kid. Now that I'm out of my parents' house, I want to go check it out. And then I think that that could be other conditions for it.
So this could be a confirmation bias on my part, but it feels to me like the demographic of the people that are the most successful at being in the hobby for more than 3 years, let's say, are not new adults, but are 35 to 55-year-olds that have maybe 2-job households, or they were a 1-job household and they just got rid of a small business. They have some extra assets. And they want to roll into a new, maybe easier small business, or one that's a passion or something. That is the backbone to me of most of the hobby. We sell the most to like younger people. Like I want a couple of pets, and they're 20 and they just moved out of their parents' house or whatever. But like the people who are breeders are usually older.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think I'd considered it fully like you are with the demographics of age, but I think you're right. You do, especially if you're going to be a breeder. Like you can get in with like on a budget, but if you really get into the hobby, you're spending thousands and thousands of dollars. And I know I didn't have that when I was in my 20s.
Right. And you need like a permanent housing situation. Like you need to be staying relatively in the same house. Like you could move a little bit, but like to have hundreds of snakes and be moving them from apartment to apartment, it just starts to be like, this is the hobby of like a middle-aged person.
Yep.
The breeding part. Having them, keeping them as pets, having 10 as pets, breeding a little bit for fun, all ages. But I feel like there's like a clear bias in the breeder. So then I'm like, if we're waiting for kids to grow up to buy stuff, we are like Steve Irwin babies, not necessarily like Bar Check babies or whatever.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So then you would need like to wait 20 years.
Yeah, but I mean, if you kind of think about like ball python, like the whole ball python industry, as far as like I'm aware, I'm not going back into like the 80s, but it was the early 2000s when the first real ball python boom happened. And then it took 20 years for another big boom to happen.
Right, but and I guess the whole time, I mean, we're talking metaphorical, whatever.
Yeah.
The whole time things were just sort of like gliding along. If this now is the gliding along again, then it wasn't. I don't know if I believe that. And I'm wrong. Might be wrong. Like if this, what's going on right now is exactly the same as the temperament of 2014. Do you think that? Because I feel like people are like, damn, I can't afford this $150 snake. And I'm like, don't you feel like people were maybe better? Maybe because it was smaller, we had less snakes to sell so that we could find people more easily. We weren't trying to sell as many cheap ones.
I do think that you have like a point on that, on the like, we'll say 2014, which again, we weren't in the hobby. I was like in college in 2014 and I wasn't paying attention to any of this stuff. So I don't know exactly how the hobby was, but based off of people that we've talked to, a lot of the people that I've talked to that were in like the mid-teens or 20 teens, they do talk about how it feels very similar now as then. I'm not saying it's exactly the same, but they talk about that it feels similar. And I know for Bob, we've talked to him. He got in like, I think roughly 15 years ago. And it was like right as like everything was like starting to crash from like the morph craze of the early 2000s. So it's like
he got in like 15. Am I making that up? Did he get in at 15?
Oh,
or whatever.
Oh, I think his first clutch was 2008. is what it. Yeah. So, but he had reptiles beforehand. But
yeah, I don't know. It's hard to know. Everyone I've asked has different opinions about it because some people are like, well, it might have been slow then, but everything was more expensive still. So even if it was slow, you were like selling a $2,000 champagne instead of waiting around to sell $100 5-gene snake that's still wet. You know what I mean? It's like it was fine to wait around because you didn't need to have as much overhead to make the same amount of money, hypothetically. And so I also think a condition for another big boom would be like very new, very visually arresting, recessive new morphs out of Africa. Totally new. Don't look like anything else. Don't look like a sort of slightly
iridescent blue ball python.
Yes, any of that. And not a combo either, because there's a point where there's like diminishing returns where everyone's like, well, yeah, I know I could, but I'll just breed it. I get told that a lot now. I don't want to buy it. I want to breed it. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. It's a hobby. It's part of the hobby. But like, there's a lot of the current sentiments. I'll just breed it. Why would I buy it? And you're like, well, you would need new morphs to instill people in the interest in putting new money in to buy new. And they need to be like exciting looking, you know?
Yep. I agree with that. Quick.
All right, let's do it. Let's do it.
Oh yeah. All right. You want me to read it? You want to read it?
Sure.
All right. Purple Church comes in on the chat with, do you feel that there is an effort from Potter to replace tables from ball python vendors that have given up their annual table spots with other species to make the show more diverse? Yes. Like, at least in my opinion, like, I think that they are trying to rebalance it. And part of the reasons why you can't like just sublease your table forever is that they want to like have better control over the diversity of their show.
What do you think would be a fair percentage of tables with ball pythons only on them?
I don't know. So realistically, this is from a self-interest standpoint, it helps out a ton when show promoters limit the amount of ball python breeders. Because if you're in the show, you're not splitting the ball python money between 100 different vendors. If they limit it to 25, it's all concentrated in those 25. So all those 25 vendors with ball pythons all do better. And I think that that's one thing that Bob has done really well with the Southeast Reptile Expo, is understanding that kind of mix. And that said, I don't know. Do you have a rough idea of how much ball pythons, like the market share for the reptile hobby ball pythons take? Because it should probably be that. If it's 50% of the market, fairly, it should be 50% of the tables. But
do you think people want to see 50% tables of ball pythons?
So I know this is blasphemy.
That is what the share is.
Yep.
Like the guest experience, you know what I mean? Yep.
So I know this is blasphemy. So we only breed ball pythons. We have Brazilian rainbow boa, and then we have red-eyed crocodile skinks. I only care about the ball pythons. Like when I go to shows, I don't even look at the other tables. Like I only care about the ball pythons. So biasedly, because that's what we breed and that's what we're in for, that's all I'm looking at. Like, well, I might glance at the other ones, but I'm just like, oh, that's neat. Like, but I'm not even considering buying one of those other animals.
Right, but if it's an expo of all the kinds of animals you could want, I mean, if that's the intention of the show, not even necessarily to make you buy something. Sometimes I think that's what they're doing. They're just trying to show off that they could bring a monitor lizard breeder there, but that person isn't really planning to sell, because it's literally an expo of everything the reptile hobby has. That's sometimes what I think they're doing. Then like they have to be there to like,
oh yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I like the fact that they have different species. I think that when everybody it's just a show full of ball pythons, it's not as exciting, and it makes all of the vendors blend into each other, and you don't remember them, and you don't remember animals. And I think it's better for the show to have a limited amount, whether it's 25 or 30%. I don't know if that's fair. It's great if you're in the show. It's terrible if you are one of the new breeders who came up and you invest in all these animals, and now all the good shows are completely full for years, and you're never going to get into them.
Do you think there should be jury and or lottery for ball python tables each year? They don't get to keep them.
I think maybe.
You know?
I think maybe, but probably not all the tables. So, not trying to be like rude to anybody who is like new and coming up on it, but if you're brand new in the reptile hobby and you have no presence and nobody knows who you are and you apply for a table, you're probably not going to be bringing people to the show because nobody knows who you are. They're not going to, people aren't coming to the show to view you. And part of a successful show is the promoter getting as many people through the door as possible. And they do that with the big name vendors. Like, they can advertise the show, but
I used to think that, and now I wonder, because have you ever like talked to anybody? Some people think that these national level shows are a normal show, like a normal size show.
They're just local when they.
Yeah, most of the people in that go to Dallas are just people in Dallas.
Yeah.
You know, and so then I'm like, it's good marketing to have people who do YouTube videos or lots of Instagrams or lives or whatever, Palm Street auctions, whatever, from the show. That's good. But I think just having big people anymore, I don't know what percentage of the door is affected. I don't know. Yeah, I don't. And it could be just 20 people. Like, I really want to come see Steven.
Yeah.
I'm in his Patreon. 20 extra people, and maybe their spouses. So 40 tables sold for Steven. But like, it would be better if you made a YouTube video about it. 2,000 people saw the video and were excited about it later, even if you weren't there ever again.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if like just directly be like, I'm going to be there really changes things. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think you're right on that. I think that it is that promotion that you're getting from the more, when I say well-known, I like how you said that the people who are active on social media and can actively market it, and whether that's YouTube, TikTok, anything like that. So with that, I think that there is a certain amount of tables that the promoter's using as like a draw. And then there's also a certain amount of tables that they use to like make sure that the show has a good balance of species. So that way it's not just all ball pythons and boring. But I do think for the health of the entire industry, there should be some tables that are essentially reserved for, when I say new breeders, I don't mean like brand new, but like newer breeders that don't have that like profile, but maybe those tables aren't permanent. Maybe it's like there is a raffle where you can apply for it if you've never vended the show before. And if you get selected, you can have that table for that show. And then you go back and they keep redoing until you get a permanent table.
I mean, there are like craft shows, animation conventions, whatever, that do every kind of thing. Like they'll have some ones that are lottery, some that are permanent, some that are juried, some that are lottery, even within the same show. So I think it's totally normal. They would just have to decide that they want to do that to manage the expectations of everybody at the show. My thing is like, some people who've been there are like nasty. So like, I would gladly take 15 ball python vendors to substitute for that one, diversity or no, because that person's just straight nasty. So like, gross. Like that's where I'm at. Like, qualified captive bred animals of any species is better than slop. Last time I checked.
Oh no, you know? Is it me?
Is it?
Yeah. No, I'm back. I'm back now. I don't know if it was me or if it was you, but I'm back. So, I think Quirky had made a comment earlier. I don't know if we already went past it or not, but they had talked about Snake Discovery promotes their own species, which is 1000% true. Like Snake Discovery doesn't promote ball pythons. Like they don't really breed ball pythons that much. So, but I still think they're an amazing force for the reptile hobby. Like
feminists want less balls. I want people to be happy. That's what I want. And largely, having too many ball python breeders is not good for all of those people together at the same show. So like, that's one reason. And we already talked about it. So like, that should be why you would want to vote for having a reduction of ball python tables if you do like ball pythons, you know. Sorry, I'm like slow on the chat. If I miss anything important, let me know.
Okay. But yeah, like
okay, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Multiple wholesalers with 4+ table booths. They're taking up a ton of space. It could be filled with whatever you want. That's not
one of my biggest. It infuriates me when there's a show that I want to get in because it's a good show, and it can be like a local Repticon because there are good local Repticons. But it infuriates me when the show is sold out. We're on a wait list. We go to the show just to hang out, and I see like a MLM booth, a roof gutter booth, like 3D printed toys booth. Like, and again, I'm not, even if they are reptile related, but I'm like, I'm so upset that there are people who are vending reptile, who could breed or vend reptiles, and they chose to give it to Roof Guy. Like,
well, that's the problem with the like first come, you don't ever let it go system. It's like, you know, you exclude people who would have been better fits. But I mean, okay, here's a Zeitgeist thing. People will tire of shows and begin to stop doing as many shows as they were because like there are probably too many shows in some markets, and begin to do more and more online live selling. What about that one?
Yes and no on that one. So I feel that in the year like 2021, 2022, probably even 2023, but I feel like 2023 is when that started going away. There was a show every single weekend within an hour of us, maybe 2 hours of us. Maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit. And a lot of those shows, they were all like local shows. It'd be like Show Me Show in Grovetown, in Rock Island. I don't remember what it is. There was a ton of them. Every single weekend, you could be like 2 hour radius, you could find a show. And I felt like that at that time, it created a situation where all of the shows weren't fun. Not they weren't fun. Nobody thought of them as an event because there's always going to be another one. We don't have to buy it now. We can buy it next time that we see them at the next show because they're always going to be there. And I think that a lot of those shows, at least in our area, have died out. Not saying their circuits have died out, but those individual shows, like they don't exist anymore.
Right.
Go
it hasn't happened in my market yet.
Okay.
So like more of that, I think will continue because I think I don't know. I don't necessarily like love everything about selling online live, but that appears to be the trend on like eBay and all those things. Like they still have static sales, they still have auctions, but they all have live. So how much more of that will come into play in the future?
Yeah, I do think it's a really interesting angle to it. I am not sold on the live auctions yet, just because I feel like that they don't go for, in my opinion, I would rather wholesale, and I know not everybody has a wholesale, so this isn't like an option for everybody, but I'd rather wholesale a lot of the animals that I see move on there than deal with the like individual like stress of shipping all of these different animals, and hopefully everything goes well. But yeah, I do think it's really good. I think that the auctions have been huge for the entire reptile hobby. I'm just haven't been sold on doing any of them yet. And I know some people do a lot and they kill it.
Yeah, it's just more about like, there's a kind of person I think that wants to have some sort of like parasocial relationship with somebody online. And so they will like lurk around their auction just to pick up a deal to be nice to them, which sounds weird, but you know what I mean. But they're not, because if you were selecting it for breeding in a very intense and specific way, you would not be on an auction, right? But if you're just like, oh, I just want a cool female hypo with some genes in it, I don't really care, but I like Steven, so I'll go to his auction, see if one comes up, and they buy it just to be nice. I don't know if it's a great way to like maintain pricing in a species that's supposed to be expensive, but it is a way to sell them. So I think
go ahead.
I just think my market still needs less shows by a lot.
I
like
see.
Dallas. specific area, there's probably 20 within an hour or two of like Dallas Fort Worth Metro a year.
No, we like I said, we've had some shows like die off here, and I do think it's for the good of the entire reptile hobby in our area. But like our two closest shows to us, the Grovetown Show Me and the North Augusta Repticon, both of them were the stereotypical local reptile show, but because they were so close to us, they actually did pretty well for us. Like we were very profitable at them, but both of them died off just because not enough people went to them, which not great.
Not enough vendors or enough guests or both?
Yeah, probably both. But I know that there was one year for the Grovetown show. I don't remember exactly what all happened. I think the show got canceled. I don't know exactly why, but they just made a Facebook post about it. And the day of, people show up. And they didn't and that was a whole thing. And I think that was the last time that show happened. Like, because people were upset. Like,
do you think sometimes I'm like, it isn't the number of shows, but how they function? Like, there could be more shows if they were more like pop-ups, like micro pop-ups that weren't asking people to drive 8 hours away, but like if there was a co-op of breeders in an area who wanted to rent a hotel room set up, they knew everybody in the co-op. It was like they didn't pay table feed, they just all shared the hotel room together, they shared marketing together. That, and they like, if they maybe the door is free or they don't even charge for a door because it's only like 12 friends in a city. And so those smaller ones might be better because then you wouldn't. What do you think of that?
I think somebody could do that, but I think it is very hard to like market the shows. Like I know Bob for the Southeast Reptile Expo, he put between the venue itself and between advertising, between like the materials and actually the ad space themselves that he'd buy on Facebook, billboards, things like that. I think he spent right around $100,000 for the first Southeast Reptile Expo. I don't know exactly what they're in this year, like for this one, but it's probably close to that. To do it right, it takes a lot. Like, and you got to be able to put the money up front, like whether it's just
right. I don't want to do it right. I want to do it cheap because like you don't necessarily need to have 6,000 people through the door. You could literally have 500 if the costs are cheap enough. No hotel, no driving. It's just friends. You're not paying for tables. You literally are there talking to your community on one day, a Saturday or whatever, and you're just trying to like tell them that you're their local breeders in your community. Like, you could literally be there to hand out business cards if like it wasn't about making sales necessarily. So sometimes I'm like a micro show and a huge show, but these in between shows kind of don't serve at either function as well. So a lot of times I'll drive 2.5, 3 hours a show. I still need a hotel. It's a little bit too far away because it's a 2-day show. And they're like, "Are you local?" I'm like, "Kind of." But not really. So like, you're not really my future customer either. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's definitely like that kind of home field advantage when you can be like, "Yeah, I'm right up the road," and they'll be like, "Oh,
right." Then they could buy later, like pick up later. You don't have to buy now. It's not low pressure, but like, there's a lot of like. I think there's still a lot of uncertainty within the show market in general that I'm like, I think we still have more fat to purge out of the number of shows that exist. Let's put it that way.
I agree on that. And I think that when it gets to the point where every show, if it's like once every 3 months in a 3-hour radius, there is a show, doesn't matter if it's a national level show, doesn't matter if it's a Repticon, doesn't matter. It's going to be like, oh, that I want to go to it. Like, there hasn't been one for 3 months. Like, I want to go see reptile people. Like,
here.
Oh, no.
No. Like, if you make it 3-hour radius, it's probably 40. I don't know.
40 in 3 months.
It's so many.
Okay.
Sorry.
But yeah. So, I think that with the introduction of Southeast Reptile Expo with All American, I think that they are doing a really, really good job. I'm stoked to see how they grow and to hopefully keep getting tables. Please don't kick us out, Nick and Troy and Bob. Just let us keep doing it. And it is. I think they're doing a great thing for the hobby, and can't wait to see what they do.
I would like more. I mean, that's sort of like the micro show idea, but like more just any kind of creative decision about a show where they're just trying something different. So if it's micro shows, all ball python shows, another colubrid fest or something like that, all rare python show. I don't even care what it is, but more attempts at like refining the process down and like discovering maybe new ways that it could be optimized. Because I think there's a lot of shows that are just like, yeah, we rented a room at the Mason Hall or whatever, and we did $1,000 of Facebook advertising that was relatively generic, and the tables are $95 each. Like it's the same show everywhere you go, and there's no like. So that way, like plants is cool. Like there's different ways to do it. People should try more ways, I guess.
Yep. One thing that I would love, and I've talked about this with multiple different people, and the people who've been in the hobby for a while are like, yeah, we've kind of tried that in the past and it didn't work. I would love a more like, are you familiar with like HubSpot's Inbound conference? It's a marketing thing. So it's like this, HubSpot is a very large like marketing automation software, and they host like this huge marketing conference every single year that has like 30,000 people go to it. But it's not a sales type of thing. It's like you go in and you like book sessions where it might be like, I'm going to attend this session where it's about branding in 2025 with artificial intelligence.
Oh, so it's like a conference, like a normal I meant to say real conference.
But that's what it is. That's exactly what it is.
Sorry, no offense. I'll play that for you.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, it's a conference reptile show. And I'm like, you're just like, it's literally just a flea market. That's all we're doing. There's no actual conference here because we're not stopping and having breakout sessions or whatever. Go ahead.
Yeah. But that I would love for something like that to happen. And I went to Justin's VIP open house with Antoine this last year, and he did something kind of like it, much smaller scale, where it would be at like specific times. Chase would come in and he would do a class on ultrasounding, and Summer did one on photography and shipping animals and things like that. But that type of thing I think could be really cool. Granted, there's like the whole economic aspect. Like if you're going to get a bunch of people who like reptiles together, the vendors are going to want to sell stuff so they can try to recoup their money. They're not going to want to be like talking on panels and things like that. But I personally would enjoy it because I think that stuff's cool. And I know you can get all that from YouTube too. But
I mean, have you looked at Colubrid Fest model?
I haven't. I've heard of it, but I haven't looked at any.
Yeah, like, Saturdays for lectures. They don't have breakout sessions yet because they're not big enough yet. And then it's just Sundays sales. So it's like a reptile show. But they have the same. It's all the same place. So if you have a hotel, you would go somewhere different. But there's no selling at all on Saturday. Only Sunday. So you have to like, I don't know, participate.
I see. I like that because I feel that let's say Saturday, if you're a vendor who's going to be vending on Sunday, but Saturday you have to do your presentation. If you do a really good job with your presentation and you're helpful and you're insightful and people watch you and they vibe with you, they might be like, I want to go talk to them. I want to be friends with them. I want to check out what they have because I really enjoyed what they talked about. And I think that's, again, I like stuff like that. I really like those conferences. I had went to the World Science Fiction Fantasy Convention, World Science Fiction and Fantasy Con, Worldcon, whatever, in 2016 in Kansas City. And it was very similar, but it was like a bunch of authors getting up and talking about like modern fantasy versus Tolkien-esque fantasy and stuff like that. And I loved stuff like that. Like, I think there could be a reptile version of it that we don't really do yet, at least.
And we have the AHS too.
I don't know what that is.
The American Herpetological Symposium. That's the right acronym.
Oh yeah, I didn't know.
So they don't sell anything. They just like have talks about herpetology, and then they used to have like a long time ago, like when it was just like old colubrid heads. They would have talks, and then just a couple tables sell a couple of whatever you have, and that's it. So those hybrid models did exist. I think there's like this like perverse incentive thing that I think that's what people are struggling with because they're like, I need to make money to make up for it. And it becomes about the money, not about the talk. And there aren't enough guests. doing the talk parts. You just have to like make sure it's balanced,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe just sell tickets for the show day and not the talk day too, or I don't know.
Yep.
It's hard.
Yep. And again, I'm not saying that anybody's doing a bad job on any like the shows. It's just it's something that I would like. Maybe not the whole zeitgeist of the entire hobby, but
right. I don't think that's it, but I think people are searching for, like, if you've been in the hobby for 5 years, I don't get any real pleasure from just going to a regular reptile show anymore. No offense, everybody. I've been to them. I've been to them. So I don't want to go necessarily. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do, Steven? I could talk to people. I could interview people, but that's why I would be there. I wouldn't be there to look at things. What am I going to look at? Boring.
Yep.
So more elaborate things would be more interesting to me also.
Yep. All right. I know you had, because we've been, I don't know if this is multiple points, but you had 5, right? That you were.
I don't know. We can switch to whatever one you want now, though.
All right. So I got one because we're talking about zeitgeist. We're talking about vibes. I know this has probably been beat to death at this point, but there has been maybe a shift, it feels like, within the last 2-3 months. Like I've started really noticing it in the pet keeping side being much more anti-breeding side. Like I feel like more
mean.
Yeah, like significantly more than what they were before, though I always feel like the pet keeping and the breeding side they're different hobbies. It's all within the reptile hobby, but keeping reptiles and breeding reptiles are different hobbies.
Yeah, I 100% agree. But if anybody wants to feel weird feelings in your heart, just go on the ball python subreddit.
Oh yeah,
there's a bot who actively says, like, every post that's about breeding, fuck you, don't breed. You're an idiot if you ever think about breeding ball pythons for any reason. You're a bad person. This is how many ball pythons are. Morph market. It like auto posts it.
I got banned from the ball python breeder subreddit.
What?
Yep. I got banned.
Steven, what did you do?
All right, somebody posted. I have no idea who they were, and it's like we're not Leviathan on Reddit because nobody we're not identifying ourselves on Reddit. We're not wild but anyways, so somebody posted on there. I don't remember what it was. Like, let's just say like a Mojave. They had like a Mojave female, and they were asking in the ball python breeder subreddit, what male should they get to pair to them, and all of the responses that had happened so far in the ball python breeder subreddit were like, don't breed, there's 40,000 ball pythons on Morph Market, all of these different things, and they didn't answer their question. And and essentially I came in, I'm like, hey, if you want to breed that animal, I'd recommend a bell male, maybe a mystic potion male. Here's the different reasons why. And then I ended it with like, by the way, Reddit is pretty notoriously anti-breeding, even in this subreddit. I would recommend checking out YouTube or Instagram because they tend to be a bit more positive towards breeding, and I got banned for that. Like,
you demon, you naughty boy. Yeah, they're psycho AF. But what do you? The problem is, like, we would have to have like a unified, thoughtful, coherent counter argument, like that explains the ethos of the average ball python breeder. We're like, hey, I hear you, pet people, but we don't breed too many because X, or maybe we do sometimes, but here's my mission statement on my website that says I don't just drop off leftovers at the rescue, which some ball python breeders do, which is bad. We don't want to encourage that. And I donate to a rescue in case, like, my animal one day, 10 years from now, gets rehomed because the kid goes to college. I'm like supporting the rescue system. Like, is that what we should do? Like, I don't know how to like convince them that we're not evil.
I don't know either. I think maybe it kind of deals with what we talked about earlier in the episode, where it's like one of the conditions to get a boom is to get a like really popular, like viral social media person that's very positive towards ball pythons. Maybe they're a breeder, maybe they're not. But I think that is something that could influence it, because what happens, and it happened to us, I think it happens to everybody, most general public doesn't know anything about reptiles. They get interested in reptiles, they start doing their own research, and the pet keeping side of the hobby is so much bigger. So you're almost always going to run across the pet keeping social media influencers before the breeder social media influencers. And if those social media influencers are super anti breeding, that's the first impression they get of the breeders, besides maybe the one they bought from. But we all know how.
But they'll turn that person against the breeder they bought from.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. 100%.
That person lied to you. You should never. I don't know. I've heard that sort of narrative too, and maybe some breeders are lying to some people. We're obviously not responsible for everybody's opinions, but like I've heard stuff that's like they'll condemn every common species. Like corn snake shouldn't be bred, leopard gecko shouldn't be bred, bearded dragons couldn't be bred, ball pythons shouldn't be bred. All of them not bred at all, ever, under any circumstance. Or quality, or selective breeding, or health status, any property that could make that animal like a good animal, none of them should be bred. That's half of the pet hobby's current process, and that's not good. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know what to do about that.
I kind of feel like that it's, again, I don't know the right answer either. Like I don't know, but I kind of feel like that it's a trend that happens. Like there's always, since I can remember in high school, there's like the whole adopt, don't shop type thing when it comes to like dogs and cats. And while that sounds pithy and maybe clever, and maybe some people adopt that saying for the reptile hobby, specifically for reptiles and specifically for people who already own reptiles, I think buying from a rescue is not the move. Like, I think
sometimes it can be. Let's be clear, like a real rescue, a 501c3 that's actually a rescue, not just a weird person, and you legitimately just want a Mojave male adult that's on frozen thaw. Go for it, please. Go get it. But I think that's like a problem. Like we should sponsor rescues or like be friends with rescues more. Because
I agree with that. That's a good idea. Yeah, that's a very good idea.
Yeah, not because it's technically an externality of what we're doing, right? Like we want to have a transaction with one customer who's happy. Great. But that snake lives a long time. So an externality, an additional cost onto that sort of one transaction is that one day that snake will maybe need to be rehomed, and the person who's the buyer now may not be able to do it successfully. So a rescue might be better qualified to like take it, find someone who wants it for $40, technically, right? Technically. And so frankly, they probably should be subsidized by us because they're doing a service for us.
Yes, I do agree with that. I hadn't ever considered it, but I think that's a really, really good point. And Nicole had said in the comments, and that's kind of like my point. She had said that I wouldn't want to expose my collection to a rescue, though. And that's kind of my point. And it's not that there are good rescues, there are legit rescues, but by the nature of being rescues, they're getting animals that have been surrendered to them. So at least at one point they were probably neglected, because nobody takes perfect care of their ball python and then just decides, let me say this. I won't use absolutes because we're not Sith over here. But
not yet anyway.
Yeah. Most people do not take absolutely perfect care of their reptiles, and then one day, while still taking perfect care of them, decide they're going to give them to a rescue. It can happen.
I like disabuse you? Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I don't know if it's personal or not. I will try to hide. But like, I was made aware of a situation where someone died. And the rescue got their entire collection. And because the family's like, I don't know what they are, what they're worth, are they nice, or how to take care of them. They were 100% and so like a lot of times breeders will step in and like de facto act like a rescue if in the case of death, like for someone. But rescues perform that function also. So like those animals might be fine and nice, like high end. They just need someone to help mediate their transfer to someone else. So that's a service
Yep.
that the reptile hobby needs. I think.
Yeah.
Just like for
yeah.
dogs, like if you die, who's going to take your
Mhm.
dog? Maybe your family.
Mhm.
Maybe it needs to go to the Humane Society and find a new home. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Yep. I agree with you on that. That's why I had retracted my absolute that I made, is that there are situations where it can happen. And the one I was thinking of is if somebody like unexpectedly had to move and they
Yeah.
so that's a situation where that could happen. But I do think that more often than not, when people surrender an animal to a rescue, it's because they've had the animal for a while, and for whatever reasons, they feel like that they can't give it the adequate care that it needs, and that after a while, they end up deciding to rehome it to a rescue because there's such a stigma for getting a pet and then giving up the pet. Like there's such a stigma for that. And I think that that results in people waiting too long.
Yes, I think, and something else that might be helpful, there's like an interview on Responsible Reptile Keeping's website of a rescue network in the UK that talks about why animals were placed with them for rehoming. And he does talk about like a large percentage aren't like bad conditioned animals. So they're just like a guy got old. He has dementia. The wife doesn't know what to do. And they're all, and there could be high end, like longicauda, like nice, weird stuff. Just people who sometimes just need help rehoming animals because they don't want to sell it. They just want to make sure it goes to go to home, but they don't have time. It's actually more common than you would think. So, like having that service, I think is important. As breeders. So, like, they should have health checks, right?
Yeah.
Don't send disease everywhere.
Yeah. But yeah, I love the idea of, because in a lot of situations, I personally, we won't get into a completely different topic and all that stuff, but I think that the reptile hobby does sponsorships weird to where they're not super effective for like the things. But I think that if you're a breeder who is sponsoring a rescue, I think that looks pretty good for you. Like,
to me, it's like the unfair. Okay, so we like our hobby. We have fun. Maybe we make a profit. Maybe we don't. But it strikes me as unfair that other people bear the cost of what our hobby is doing, which is taking care of like animals that are people that maybe not we directly, but someone like us sold to, and then that animal was not taken care of directly. That's why rescues hate us, and that's why pet people hate us, because I would go drive and pick up a snake that I know was not being taken care of if they're like, come get it from me. But by then it's 10 years later or whatever. So there has to be a third party who's safe for the person to drop it off with. So we probably should sponsor them. Let's be honest.
But yeah, I think that kind of tying it back towards the pet keeping side and the rescue side, disliking the breeding side, it seems to be like amping up recently. I think that during COVID, actually, now that I think of it, it's a little strange because I feel like that would have came during COVID when like all of the content really was like make $2,000 a month breeding ball pythons, we did a video $50,000 a year breeding ball pythons. Like everybody was doing it at the time. They did very well. I would almost have expected the things that we've seen recently to have happened then, but maybe it didn't because everything was blowing up at the time. Like,
I think it's because there was places for things to go. Like there's a problem now where people are trying to sell ball pythons at a show, being like couldn't sell them for $50 or like cheap because they're just like, well, and they just walk to the rescue and they drop off bags. That's not fair. And so like people now know that that's happening. I don't think that was happening during.
Because
you could just be like, okay, $50. They're like, sure, I just need a pet. I'm bored.
We drove in 2020, I don't remember, 2020 or 2021, one of the two. We drove like 4 hours to pick up a breeder pastel female and paid like $400 for her.
What a time.
Yeah, it was wild because there was no breeders at all. That was the time when the advice was never sell a breeder female because she will always be able to produce a clutch for you, and the clutch will always be worth more money than what it costs to produce it. And
what a time.
There was also the time where it was if you breed quality snakes, the snakes will sell themselves. So it does, as long as you're willing to buy the high-end quality example kind of thing, the snakes will sell themselves. And it was essentially advice like, don't market yourself. Don't like actually think about your business plan. Just buy the Ain't no we. You're right. You're right.
The hard part is, I think people give the advice that worked for them sometimes.
Mhm.
So sometimes that might have been right. So sometimes I don't blame people.
Yeah,
for
I mean, it
advice
was right. I
think.
mean, snakes sold themselves in 2020. Like, it
Yeah.
really, yeah.
And, or they'll give the advice that they believe to be true because it seemed true for 5 years, but
Mhm.
then it's not true one day. So like
Yeah.
female pieds will always be $300 to $400. That's something I heard all the time. They are
Mhm.
not. They are not.
Yeah.
And maybe they will never recover because now there's a dreamsicle and a clown pied in the same price point. So
Mhm.
a pet person would be like,
This one looks prettier.
yeah, that's my $300, $400 snake.
Mhm.
You know what? So everything stays the same until it doesn't, I guess is what I'm saying. And so
Yeah.
you're always sort of reacting to new information, and
Mhm.
that's fine. But I feel like, going back to Zeitgeist, the new Zeitgeist is figuring out the new way ball pythons will be
Mhm.
in a like post rubber band stretch world where it was
Mhm.
hyper inflated and then maybe like, and now it's maybe like relaxing back up to
Mhm.
wherever it's going to be. But what is this new time? What is the new time?
So, and again, I don't fully know, but I do agree on things have changed on how you sell ball python, or the hobby sells ball pythons. When we got in, you could post something to Morph Market, and if you didn't, and if it was something good, it was gone. Like, you'd get 5 inquiries for a bell in a day. Like, that is not true anymore. Stuff still sells on Morph Market, but not nearly as quickly as it was during those times. And I think that resulted in a lot of people being like, well, if it's not working as good on Morph Market like it was during COVID, I'm going to do in-person shows. And then that worked, but that's like, there's certain, not everybody can get into in-person shows or the good in-person shows. And then there's, even with all these, there's stuff that still doesn't sell because maybe it was just priced too high. Then auctions got introduced again. I know they've been part of the hobby multiple times, but the auctions moved a lot of animals, and I was like, oh, that's really cool, and that works out well. And then I feel like that there's the introduction of the live auctions where somebody can move a lot of animals at once, and that's working really well
I just
for
want
people.
you to know live auctions happened before.
Oh yeah, because you were doing them.
Yes,
Honestly,
I was. It was good until Morph Market started auctions, by the way. Because it was like running a wholesale sale
yes,
quickly all at
Mhm.
once. And you're like, I'm done. And that was your like end of year, not end of year, but like these the babies that I couldn't move yet, and I don't feel like doing a show, so I'll just cut my losses.
Yeah,
It doesn't really work anymore.
So I feel like that those things all were adaptations, I think, and this is hard. This is advice for people, like a different avenue that we have our most successful sales avenue right now has been Patreon. And I know that that's not something that can apply to most people because not everybody has Patreons. And even if you have a Patreon, that doesn't mean that you have people to join. But I do think that, just like how I always give like the advice of like build your brand as soon as you decide you want to do it as a business, I think that it doesn't have to be Patreon, but if you essentially try developing like a core community of people who love you and support you and will do anything for you, they're ride or die, and you can find ways to foster them and identify them and reward them. And then when it comes time for you to have a clutch, those are going to be the people who are like, I got you. I'm willing to buy it. Like, and I think that
you ever worry about customer fatigue?
Oh,
like
where the same people buying everything?
Yeah, well, they're buying from you to support you, and because they think it has some utility, right? But like, there's a point where they can't support you anymore because the pool, they just don't have the money to support you. So like, you're always offering them stuff, but like, you can't keep harvesting from the same pool of people, even if they're your ride or dies.
Oh yeah, I agree with you. That does happen, and I think that that's part of. There are some people who I feel like when they get a successful like core community like that, and again, it doesn't have to be Patreon. It could be a Discord community. It could be like a YouTube, because you don't do Patreon. You do the YouTube member stuff, right?
Yeah, but I intentionally, no offense, everybody, do not sell to them as hard as I could because this is a problem. Like, I don't want to fatigue them by selling to the people who support me the most. I'd rather sell to other people and like tell them how I sold to them. Does that even make any sense? Because they're going to want to support me to be nice to me, but I need them to have a functional collection, not a light version of my collection. That's a
so that I do think that is a huge thing, because there has been a time where somebody was interested in an animal from us and they were talking to Courtney, and I was like, we cannot sell them that animal. They're in our Patreon. We cannot sell them that animal. We know they're trying to breed. Like, that is not a good animal.
From themselves.
Yeah.
There's like I think a ethical seller can navigate it and help them. But like, that's why I'm always like, walled gardens are dangerous and for everybody involved. Even if it's good sales, it's still dangerous.
I think you could create a situation where if you're not growing the walled garden audience, whatever that is, you'll run out. Like, it's just like if you had like a tree and you keep coming back to the same tree over and over and over again, eventually there's not going to be any fruit on the tree.
Right. They have their collection. They're good to go. And or they just don't have the money to support you. And so then, like, but you've maybe lost your ability to communicate. Not you specifically, but someone with a walled garden may have stopped doing promotion outside of the walled garden.
That's
all their content gets stuck inside, and so their like sales funnel is sort of truncated.
So this is our kind of strategy for it. So beyond it just being like for the Patreon. So every dollar that somebody spends in the Patreon, they get as a credit for a future snake purchase. We don't care about the fees. If they're spending $50, it doesn't matter what Patreon takes out of it. They get $50 credit, and we keep track of that through Patreon and then like an Excel sheet that we have. So what happens is, as we're never making, like, I think maybe once or twice we've done like, here are snakes for sale. Usually what happens is we are posting results of clutches. We're doing things like that, anything that you would do on YouTube, but we're putting it in the Patreon. And almost always what happens is that people will be like, you hit a chocolate double het sunset clown female. If you're not selling her, I want to buy her. And they'll use some of their credit to whatever they have built up to pay for part of it. And they're just essentially pre-buying that animal. And then they'll pay the rest of it to finish off the balance. So what I think ends up happening by doing this kind of model, they are essentially getting all of their money. I'm not going to say back, because it's not necessarily back. They're using it towards a purchase as long as they think they're going to buy something from us. So because they've built up a credit for us, it doesn't matter what it is, $100, $200, $300. If they're in the market for an animal, they are always coming to us first to see if we either have it or if we have a clutch coming up, because they want to use their credit.
There's another thing I've noticed is that, I don't know about yours. I don't know how much yours are, but sometimes the prices within Discords are within like Patreon Discord sales are higher than what I think market is.
Yeah. Like, we don't do that.
I'm always like, it should be like 70% of market, because it's already like the buddy sale of the century anyway, and let them use their credit, because it's because the animal isn't competing on the open market. So the buyer is the most naive, most weak at that moment. They're trusting you to offer it to them at a fair retail value, but the market's moving so fast. Some of the price lists I've seen, I think, are even with a bank account discount, have been dangerous.
So the way that, and this is just the methodology of it. Generally, if there's an animal that's actually going to be posted to sale and it's not a holdback, if it's a holdback animal, which we do have one that we're going to be bringing to Southeast Reptile Expo that I don't want to sell, so this doesn't apply to this one. The way we go about it is that we go to Morph Market, we figure out, does this combo exist? If it does exist, we look to see like, what's the lowest price where there are multiple different people kind of pricing it around. If there's one outlier that's super low, we discard that one. But if there's 5 people that all have something priced at $1,000 and that's the lowest price, I'm like, all right, the going rate for it is $1,000. So for the Patreon, what we do is anybody who's part of the Patreon, even if they're the $5 tier, they automatically get a 20% discount. So if it's $1,000 on the open market, on the list price, they would pay $800 for it. And then they can use their credit.
Old comps or just listed prices?
Whatever's listed at that point in time. So if
that's not right, Stephen.
Because they are the stuff that's still available.
Yes, that's the whole point.
Yeah. But it's the stuff that's listed at that point in time is that we go off of.
I know. I think we all need to act like it's real estate.
Oh, where we're looking at the recently solds? Yep.
Yeah, big dog.
Yep. But that's how
if you
we
try
go
to
about
buy
it.
a Pokemon card, it doesn't matter what they're listed at. It's the recent sold, like ending auction prices, ending sold comps.
Yep.
Pokemon cards are more fungible than snakes, but you know what I mean.
But yeah, so that's the way that we kind of go about it. So that way, our goal from the Patreon is selfishly, it's a marketing avenue for us. It's a way to put ourselves out there, find the people who enjoy us so much that they want to pay us each month for it, and then we want to reward their loyalty to us by being like, all right, you're going to get a better deal for your animals than you would get on the open market. You're going to get additional content. We do like breeder meetups. We do like we try to do a lot of
swinger thing, or
yes, it is that we're zeitgeisting all over the place.
Oh, hell yeah.
You
gotta pay extra for the video of that.
Yeah.
No, I think they're fine. I mean, I talked to Shane about this a lot when he asked me. I would think I was the counterpoint, and he still did it. What about the failure-ish of some of the Patreons where they've shut down?
Which one?
In the last couple of years.
Is there an example of one? Because is there Aussies?
Aussies is shut down.
I don't know. I was never part of that one.
Yeah,
so I
and
don't.
it doesn't have to be why, but like, when will you shut down, and like, how will you disperse the credits, or will you?
Well, I mean, as long as we are in business for ball pythons, the credits don't expire. Like, people have joined and they've left, but they still have their credits if they want, and we let them know that. We don't have any hard feelings on people, but if we actually got out of business, then that's like a different situation. Like, that is like
small claims court is what you're saying.
Yeah.
But, sorry,
yeah, it is. But yeah, if it was a situation like that where like we did not have reptiles anymore, we were gone, like, which I don't, for what I would say is like, let's say that I got in a car wreck and I died. Honestly, Courtney would be perfectly fine because she does all the snake care anyway. So, but yeah. I just look pretty is all I do. But that would be the only way that I feel like that somebody wouldn't be able to use the credit that they've built up, is if like we were gone. Like, but that's not something that we're planning on doing. In fact, we're planning on going. Courtney's planning on going full time this year.
Oh, good job. Well, like there are some Patreons that haven't closed yet, but they have so many people contributing so much money per month that it's possible people maybe don't see what they want, but now have $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 in credit, and then
that there's people like that with us.
Yeah, so then like you have to make something they want to buy eventually, so they can cash out. Otherwise, you have this like sort of rolling liability thing.
So the way that we structure it in there is that it's not like, people might, and I don't know about all people might describe it as a bank account, but it's not like a ball python crypto that you can then transfer back to cash at some point in time. It is a like credit. It is like you're essentially buying a gift card through your monthly fees. And I don't know, but I don't think you can go back to Walmart with a gift card and be like, give me cash for this gift card.
Right, but they could sue you in small claims court, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay.
Okay. They don't need cash. But like, that's something I was like, I don't know how to manage that if I were doing it, where if like the pool of money starts to become so big.
Honestly,
like, maybe you should force them to cash out every
X amount of time,
X amount of years or something. Like, please cash out on the next 15 clutches or whatever. Pick whatever you want.
Right now, I do get what you're saying, but I kind of feel like that is something that would only be an issue if we were getting out. And I think Courtney had put into the chat, like, if we were getting out, we would be selling off a bunch of stuff. So there'd be a lot of animals to sell. So it's like, there's that thing, but that's not like, again, that's more of like a worst case scenario type situation that's going on. And given the stories I've heard from like the ball python world, there's so many people who've gotten scammed for $20,000, $30,000, $100,000, and there wasn't any lawsuits that happened with big names that everybody knows about. I don't think maybe I'm wrong. I don't think somebody's gonna be suing for $500 credit that like.
I don't know, man. I mean, there was a lawsuit pretty recently over a $300 snake.
Oh, I didn't hear about this. I didn't know anything about this one.
Yeah, Sydney got a judgment for $3,000 for like vet bills and whatever. But it wasn't like a Patreon situation, but like civil court, they'll take it. Like, let's go. I don't know. It's just something to think about. I think the thing that feels zeitgeisty about it to me is it can be a sales funny, but by definition, not everyone can have it. Not everyone can have a Patreon with a like league of customers that are hyper loyal, just by definition.
Yeah.
And so then, like, other people need other sales models to work on.
Yeah, I agree. I do think there's other like opportunities, but I think that is in our like kind of world right now, it is our it is the best sales method that we have right now. But I know that's not something that's available to everybody. But if you are a content creator, whether it's TikTok or YouTube or Instagram or Facebook or anything like that, kind of I think it's smart to pay attention to be like, how can I identify the hyper loyal people? How can I reward them? And how can I get them into a group where they can build a community together? Like,
I don't know. I'll fight you on that one, Steven. Do you think a Patreon should operate like a piggy bank only system, or should they be obligated to provide consistent content? Do you think if they stop being anything but a piggy bank, is that okay?
I think it depends on the expectations that they set. So if they come out the gate and they're like $50 a month, it's a piggy bank for future snake credit, and that's all you get, and people sign up for it, that's fine. They knew what it was and they went into it. If it is a situation where it's like either the rewards or the implication is that it's more like, for example, we do like a weekly audio only podcast as part of it. Like that's like one of the core pieces of content that we do. We do it every single week. I think we're on week 55 right now. And I think that if you have those expectations, you need to maintain those expectations. But so there's like, for us, we do the weekly podcast. For the top 2 tiers, we do a like once a year in-person meetup. This last year we did it at Daytona, where we like bought dinner for everybody. It was a fun time. It was great. We have like Zoom calls, various different stuff like that. And I think that if that's the expectation as the creator, you have to maintain your obligations. And part of that is the content part. And I think that those are better.
Yeah, I think some people like, they feel like they can't leave because they have money tied up in the piggy bank, but they thought they were also getting content. I'm obviously elaborating on what Eileen said, but
yeah,
you know.
I haven't heard of and maybe I'm wrong, but I haven't heard of any of the like piggy bank Patreon type things making people lose their credit if they leave.
Yeah, I don't think that's what's happening. They just aren't doing as much content, and so people are scared. So maybe they should make a public post about it.
Yeah. But I do think you want to be active in your community, because that's the real benefit of Patreon for the reptile hobby, is building that community. And if you as the creator are not part of the community, like what's the point really? Like,
Keith asks, can somebody buy other people's credit maybe for half off in your community? We're literally trading.
We're doing crypto. Yeah. No. So we have not
trade considered on Leviathan stake Patreon credit.
Man, that would be interesting. So technically we don't have a rule against it.
So dogs can play basketball?
So I don't want to, this is not binding because I have no idea. Technically, we do not have a rule against it. But like, for example, like let's say that we have Joe Smith who has $500 and we have Jane Doe who has $500. There's a snake that we have for sale for $1,000. If somehow they went together and they were like, hey, Jane is going to buy your $500 credit for $250, so she's going to spend $750 essentially to, like, it doesn't hurt us in any way, but I don't know if that would get tricky, because
it would be like selling a gift card, on Facebook or whatever, basically.
Essentially,
yeah.
I don't think that. again, this is not like hard set in stone. I don't see what the issue would be because we've already gotten the money. Like this is one thing that I think I disagree with how some other Patreons have done the credit, where I look at if you're in the Patreon and you have $500 of credit built up, you have already paid us $500. And if you got a snake that was $500, you didn't get that snake for free. You got it for $500. You just paid for it early. Like, and that's the way that I view it. They are sales. They are like paying for it. They're not getting it. So it doesn't matter to me if person A had $500, person B had $500. They go in together and they get a snake for $1,000. We still got the $1,000. But I don't want to like.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting to think about. I would love to see someone do futures tradings on Steven's eggs.
Yeah, they see our clutches coming up and they're like, I think he's going to be hitting some bangers.
Yeah.
I'm willing to buy anybody's credit for 50 cents on the dollar. I think he's going to hit like 6 cents at Ultramills. Like, we're starting an actual reptile
it's
crypto
probably
market.
going to happen.
Let's be day traded on Morph Market. Like, there's going to be tickers for like Leviathan and Always Evolving and all the ones that like.
That would be funny. Even as a joke, I would love to see like an SNL skit at a reptile.
Yeah.
It was AP, sort of, and maybe another one. Oh, they're still around, so it's not like they've messed up, but like they just aren't apparently active in their Discord in terms of adding Patreon in terms of adding extra content yet. So I don't know. As long as everybody's happy, it's fine. They're all adults. I just don't know. Yeah, there are companies that'll buy gift cards at 90%. So maybe people could buy you out of your shares.
Again, it doesn't. As long as it was like, it would have to be. I know for sure that they did sell it. It'd have to be like, if you had $500 of credit, you would have to be the one being like, I sold my credit to this person.
In writing, you think we need to like?
Yeah, we would need to. No, not notarized, but we just need to know that you are the one who did it, not like. Random person comes up and be like, I bought Jessica's credit for like, and I have her stuff now. Like,
what are do you like the tax implications better of the Patreon system? Because obviously they report everything. I don't know, a little cash might disappear.
True.
You know what I mean?
We are, when it comes to tax stuff, like it's annoying. We're super like, we're actually reporting it. Like if we had like show sales that are cash, we are definitely reporting it IRS, but most of our stuff goes through Square and we report all that stuff anyway.
Do you type in your cash into Square?
Yes.
You do?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, buddy.
Yeah.
Do you get all the appropriate sales tax permit for every state you vend in and have situs?
Unless we try to. If there's ones that we haven't done it's because I didn't know. I don't know if Illinois does a specific thing for it, but we've only vended in South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, and then Illinois is the only states we've ever vended in.
So you have, like, yeah, that's another thing people don't do either is collect sales tax. But we don't collect sales tax beyond what they do, but I have to like. It's every month and it's annoying, but I have to like submit the local sales tax and all that all that stuff. It's annoying. Like we actually do the taxes and it sucks and I hate the government. Like, oh, and what's funny, and I don't know if like somebody like Bob or Justin or somebody who's big enough has hit the rules, but the like situs rules in California, even if you ship there, it's only like 500,000. In some states, it's like 200,000. So if you just sell that much money there, you would have to have been collecting all along and shipping. So I don't know, like the high gross sales companies, no matter what their margins are, probably should know which ones they are. Even if they never do a show there.
Courtney actually just gave me a note, and that is that we have a Patreon call that's starting right now, and I did not realize that. I didn't like, I don't know if we want to wrap it up real quick. I'm super, super sorry. I didn't even know.
Steven, you're letting me down.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, we didn't get to all of them, but whatever. We can do it later next time.
I'm sorry, friend.
Well, we did an hour and a half. That's pretty good.
There we go. All right. I'm sorry.
Listen, you just blew my heart.
I know. We'll do it again.
All right. Yeah, that was pretty good. We did it. I don't know what we accomplished. Nothing. We learned what the word zeitgeist means, right?
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
We did.
There are more things that I think are changing.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we don't actually know what we're talking about. We're just guessing. And don't worry about it too much. Have fun.
That's all. The chat told me to take the call live. I was going to bring you over there, but you guys there's like a whole setup. Like you're on the camera right here. Then there's the laptop.
Take the call live?
Yeah, the Patreon call. Like bring you guys over to like.
I don't know if they're going to want to do that.
Yeah. Tell Guillermo I'll be there in like 2 minutes. Okay.
All right. Thanks for coming on.
All right.
Good luck at SERE. Tell everybody what you're bringing. So I know what to expect.
Honestly, ball pythons, and we have so little ball pythons left that they're like mostly pet stuff. But Winston from WHS is going to be at our table, and he is going to have some amazing animals. Like I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous of these animals he's going to have. Like,
all right, very good.
Yeah.
See Steven this weekend. See Shane. See Gray Family Snakes. We love everybody. Bye. See you later. See you for the member live. I don't know who.